the script and I thought the design of the script was really compelling, really interesting. So, and I kept going back to it, like I was looking for the wrong thing. I was like, yeah, you know, maybe I was in a headspace that just wanted it to be good and all this stuff. And every time I went back to it, it got more interesting and more interesting. So ultimately, and then I met with him and I felt like he was, you know, he was an open book. And it was, I mean, we talked about that. He was kind of like, this is me, this is who I am, this is where I'm at in my life, this is what I've gone through, this is what this script, which was the most interesting aspect of it, this is what the script came from. I think he's a very sensitive guy, sensitive director, and I think that came across when I met him and talking about his friend and what these characters were based off of. And I like that, you know what I mean? So he's very, because of the sensitivity, he's very present, and he's like, he wants this to be, he wants it to stay personal to him. And I like that kind of pressure. You know, somebody who kind of lives in potential resentment, you know, it just doesn't really live in solution. It just lives in perpetual problem. So whether he's right or he's wrong, however he deals with any situation is usually the worst way. I like people like Alden and like Julia who bring it, you know? It's an old school mentality of willing to be literally naked, emotionally, spiritually, psychically, in order to get whatever's needed. And that there's no success, failure per se, you know? It's like you have to put it, you don't know what feels like a failure could be a success in the editing room. Your job is just to put it all out there. I think you have a really intelligent, sensitive, emotional filmmaker who's got a great intelligence for understanding design and storytelling. You have great characters. And I think, you know, in a new genre that's coming up where you have Ari Aster and all that, I think it's interesting to see really interesting filmmakers and smart filmmakers, but differently dealing with the same genre. And I like it. It's fun because we're going to see some. I love being involved with somebody who I think is really good.
I was a big fan of Zach's last movie, and I read the script, and it was so original. I've never read anything like it. It was a really interesting tone, and it's obviously scary, but there's a lot of humor into his filmmaking as well, which I love that. I think, you know, things don't need to be so, you know, one color can be different colors. So there's a lot of humor to his style of filmmaking, which I really love. In a strange way, this movie isn't just a horror movie. I think it's also a love story in a very strange way. And when I mean by love story, it's about people having the desire to connect, but not knowing how. Right. And, you know, at least for Justine, alcohol is a huge part of her storyline. And, you know, a lot of times people that drink, they want to connect, but they don't know how. And that's, to me, what I found so interesting in the movie is it's really about like a wanting to be loved or liked or wanting a connection, but not knowing how. The kids ground her in a way, and they give her purpose. So as soon as she loses that, she doesn't really have, she feels directionless and she has no purpose. And she feels like her life is over and she's like desperate. He's just such a natural teacher. I mean, he is incredible. It's so easy to work with him. Like, he comes in, he's so open. He's also very clear, like in the tone. He's just very grounded. He's a very grounded actor, person, and it's a dream when you get to work with an actor like that. Everybody is incredible. Amy, Larkin, the DP. I mean, Austin. It's fun to watch. I mean, I've been actually having and that doesn't happen often, where you go on set and you just want to watch the movie. Like, you're like, when is this coming? This is amazing. And, you know, it's jobs like this where I'm like, I'm so lucky that I get to do what I get to do. And then everybody is so lovely. Like they're so nice. So it's just, these are the kind of jobs that are important because not only are they super talented, super good at, or not good, great at what they do, but they're also really genuine people. And that's not something that you come across every single day. When I met Zach, I thought he was a sweetheart, first of all. I mean, he's just like the kindest guy. My first impression was that he was very clear on his vision and he had a very clear direction. And, you know, that's the number one. You would think that all directors are very direct, but sometimes that's not the case. But he is so direct and he does it with such grace. But he's also very open and I feel like we kind of wanted the same thing, which it wasn't that much, it wasn't crazy work. It was actually quite simple, but even though it's not simple, but it was flowing, which is very rare to have. But yeah, and also he wrote such a brilliant script that it was so much fun to just get to know Justine, and it just kind of came in a way. The director wrote the script, and it's an original story that's, you don't come across that every day. And then having like this lineup of incredible actors. You know, every day there's at least once a day where I sometimes have to just pinch myself where I'm like, okay, just, you're not watching, you're acting in the scene. And it's such a joy to watch. And it's such a joy to watch Zach because I'm just really excited. I think he's so talented and I love working with him.
When I read this script, it felt like there was this very personal, very human, very deeply felt quality sort of coming through the characters and through the genre. And it felt like there was something alive in this that was much more compelling to me than a lot of the other scripts I had read, even non-genre scripts. And so I just loved it. I found the story compelling. I thought it was not like something I'd seen before. And you could just tell with these characters that there was something going on, that he had really imagined a full life for all of these people. And the movie really follows each of these people. These horror elements happen, but it's really a film that's focused on the kind of psychological and emotional baggage and how that baggage gets brought up as a consequence of these kids who go missing. Zach has put it, it's really about somebody who's somewhat newly sober and waking up in a life that he's not happy in and navigating what that feels like and frustrated. The other thing that's really striking that I didn't really, it's interesting, you do these, when you get on set and you experience it, you realize certain things you realize a lot about the movie, but in particular with this, each of these characters, you know, there's not a lot of scenes with them sitting at the kitchen table with their husband or wife and talking through the conflict. Everybody's just kind of trying to navigate what's happened to the town, but also what's happening in their lives in that moment, and they're doing it completely alone. I think the movie, weirdly, one of the things that I can kind of glean that there's a lot more humor to it than is evident on the page. That a lot of these scenes in a way play in a kind of a dark humor, very kind of particular tone of dark humor in a way. And so he's, you know, he's laughing after takes and enjoying the stuff we're shooting so much. And yeah, it's a great balance of kind of enthusiasm of someone on their second or third film with a really strong sense of what each scene is meant to be and where it lies and what the idea is. He just has a really great understanding of the material. Every day feels like you're doing scenes that are consequential and meaty and important to the story. And that's not always, there's not really filler scenes so much, you know, and that you can feel that. The amount that you get in terms of story, in terms of feeling, in terms of character, in terms of imagination and new worlds is really uncommon and really there's just, at the end of the day, it's what I felt when I read the script. There's just an intangible thing where this one feels kind of alive and unusual and different than anything you've seen before.
I mean, it's a part that I haven't really played before, I think, with Marcus. I mean, you've got someone who is, he's the principal of the school and he's there to hold things down. And he's very much by the book, but yet also what then happens to him. There's almost like two versions of playing this character. He cares about the kids in the school and he likes to keep everything all kind of stabilized, wherever he can, My, admission is that I haven't seen a horror film since Hellraiser. The Pen Man entered into my dreams. Weapons came and I immediately thought, this is a gauntlet to pick up. And it's really fun actually being in horror now, I've found, because it's smoke and mirrors, obviously. And the vibe on the set was great. The work ethic was, it's top down there, and that's such a credit to Zach as well, and the energy that he brings. Yeah, Zach Cregger is the future for me. It's really kind of heartening to see someone who writes, directs, cares so deeply about his script and his vision. He's firm but fair. Fun vibe on set. I just want to be in another film with him. That's it. That's my audition to you, Zach. I just had an amazing experience on this, with an incredible ensemble. I think overall the team as well. And I think if you can find that, that's the magic, that's the special sauce, I think. I think if you can find the right team, everyone all gels in that way, and you can have, and then you've got an amazing script. You have the beginnings of making something special, that's it. What I found with Zach's style, really, in his version of storytelling is it's relentless storytelling that you don't know where we're going to go next. Another corner turns to another corner.
After Barbarian, I wanted to make something that felt a lot more ambitious, and not just in terms of size and scale, and a lot more moving parts and a much more challenging structure. But I also wanted something that wasn't just about being scary. That would be kind of a deeper, more interesting story than just like a horror movie. So yeah, Weapons is scary. I think it's scarier than Barbarian, but it's also like take all that out, it's still just, I think, a much more fascinating story. As someone who's just like watched millions of movies over the course of my life and just loves them so deeply, like it's hard to have a story that is surprising and that you're not going to kind of see coming from the moment you watch the trailer, or at least once you're 10 minutes in. I feel like I usually know 10 minutes into a movie where it's going to go. I feel confident in saying that's not the case with Weapons. And it's really important that that is preserved for the people who are going to watch it after, the first round of people who watch it. So I guess this is a way of me saying, please don't spoil this movie for your friends. Let people have their pure experience with it, please. Weapons is a movie that has kind of one central mystery, right? And it has all these different characters that are orbiting that central mystery. I wanted us to feel like we're strapped in and we're on the ride, and it's just getting faster and faster and faster. So everyone has their own kind of story within the greater kind of framework, but every story is bending towards the same central mystery. So the central question that this movie asks is why? Why did one classroom of kids decide on the same night at 2:17 in the morning to get out of bed, walk downstairs, open the front door, and walk out into the dark and never come back? This is a movie that starts weird, and I think it ends way weirder. But it also stays, both feet on the ground as much as it can. It's a movie that kind of obeys the rules of its own universe, so it's not going to spiral into some weird hallucinogenic nightmare or anything like that. But it's a twisty, turny movie. I mean, it's a movie that reinvents itself about every 20 minutes while still staying true to the central engine. I think it's easy to mistake Julia as like a little bit of of a delicate person, but she has this really, really powerful core that I think her magic is that she's able to access both of these parts of herself, you know, with a lot of compelling expertise. Like, Josh is one of my favorite actors. I mean, he's been in like so many movies that I just adore. He's so good. He's so talented. He's able to do so much with so little. You know, he's gruff, but he's incredibly vulnerable, and he's just compelling. He's a movie star. It's one of the gifts of my life to be able to have Josh Brolin be in this movie. I don't know what to say. It's obvious how great he is. There's something you get when you go see a horror movie in a movie theater where you are tapping into the vibration of the room. And when you are coming together in a crowd and you're forfeiting your attention, you know, in unison to this experience, and you find the same wavelength, it's more fun. It's more engaging. You know, and when you get that in a horror movie and you're on this roller coaster together, and it's, you know, a thrill and an adrenaline and a laughter release, like, that is more enjoyable when you do it en masse. And so I'll always go see him in theaters. And it's just more fun.